Have you ever heard of the term built from belief? Well, this is a powerful motivational story that will show you what it means to be built from belief. A young boy was looking out over the stormy sea. The wind was so strong that it was almost knocking him off his feet. The waves were crashing over the rocks and the sea spray was stinging his face. But the boy stood firm and he shouted over the wind, "I believe that I can walk on water." As the wind grew stronger and the waves crashed around him, the boy took a step forward into the water. And with each step, he moved further and further away from the shore until he was out in the middle of the raging sea. People on the shore were watching in amazement as the boy walked on water. They had never seen anything like it before. The boy didn't know that they were watching him, though. He was too focused on his goal to turn back and see who was following him. He kept walking until he reached the other side of the raging sea, and he stood there for a moment, catching his breath. When he turned around, he saw the people from the shore running towards him. They were cheering and celebrating his victory over the raging sea. The boy had done something that was thought to be impossible. He had walked on water, and they were celebrating him for his bravery and his belief in himself. But the boy just smiled and said, "It wasn't me who did it. It was my belief that allowed me to do it." Then he disappeared into the crowd. This powerful story teaches us that our beliefs have the power to shape our reality. What we believe to be true becomes our truth and shapes how we see the world around us. If we believe that something is possible, then it becomes possible for us. But if we believe that something is impossible, then we will never be able to achieve it. So what do you believe is possible for you? Are your beliefs holding you back or are they propelling you forward? It is time to take a good hard look at our beliefs and ask ourselves if they are serving us or if they are holding us back. We must be willing to challenge our own beliefs and be open to the possibility that we may be wrong. Once we have done this, we can start to see the world in a new light and we can start to believe in ourselves and our own abilities. This is the first step towards achieving anything in life. Now let me tell you a very long story that will help you understand what it means to be built from belief. There once was a young man who was looking for his purpose in life. He had just graduated from university, but he felt that there had to be more to life than just getting a job and making money. One day he decided to go for a walk in the woods behind his house in search of some peace and quiet. As he was walking, he came across an old, wise hermit who was sitting on a log. The young man sat down next to the hermit and asked him for advice on how to find his purpose in life. The old hermit looked at the young man for a moment and then said, "You already have the answer inside of you, but you will never find it if you don't believe in yourself." The young man was confused by the hermit's answer, so he pressed him for more. The hermit stood up and started walking into the woods. The young man followed him, hoping that he would eventually explain what he meant. After a while, they came to a clearing and the old hermit pointed to a small cottage in the distance. "Go to that cottage," he said to the young man. "And when you get there, knock on the door 3 times and wait for an answer." The young man was still confused, but he did as the hermit had instructed. When he got to the cottage, he knocked on the door 3 times and waited. A moment later, the door opened and a beautiful woman stood in front of him. "Can I help you?" she asked. The young man hesitated for a moment, but then he asked the woman for advice on how to find his purpose in life. The woman smiled and said, "You already have the answer inside of you, but you will never find it if you don't believe in yourself." The young man was shocked. This was the same answer that the hermit had given him. "How is that possible?" he asked. The woman just smiled and said, "Some people have to learn the same lesson several times before they finally understand it." She then invited the young man in for tea, and they talked for hours about his purpose in life. The woman helped him to see that the answer was inside of him all along, but he had been too afraid to listen to his heart and follow his dreams. Finally, when it was time for the young man to leave, the woman gave him a small box. "Open this when you get home," she said, "and remember that you are not alone in this journey." The young man thanked the woman for her help and he ran off to go home. He couldn't wait to open the box and see what was inside. When he got home, he opened the box and found a small wooden carving of a man who was standing tall and proud. On the back of the carving was a small inscription that read, "Believe in yourself and your dreams will come true." The young man looked at the carving and realized that this was exactly what he needed to hear. He had been doubting himself and his abilities, but now he knew that he had to believe in himself. He wanted to achieve his dreams. From that day on, the young man never doubted himself again. He knew that he had the power to create his own future, and he lived his life with confidence and purpose. And that is the story of the young man who went in search of his purpose in life and found it within himself.